Melissa.
Yes.
And I made that request just for listeners to know that I sent a message to David. I
Yes.
said, could you please play Stalin Wait, Dorothy Wait?
Yeah.
And he did. That's why I was not happy because of the lyrics. I mean, the lyrics are kind of sad, really,
Yeah.
and they're powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of makes you feel sad that today we could still find it so relevant.
Yes.
So much of what was said. Maybe
Yeah.
some of the things are being addressed, like the Windrush generation
Yeah.
and apathy to a certain extent. But a
Mm.
lot of what he said in the first thing, I mean, it's all still so true. And it's really, I felt it was important that people remember how Stalin was really a visionary and such a
Yes.
powerful lyricist.
Yes, he was. And I certainly hope that they'll document some of his work. It's difficult to get Trinbagonians to do that. A lot of his works could have been part of the curriculum. Like I heard Julia Lucky said, that is something I've been saying for years and years ago. There are certain calypsos that should have been part of the curriculum. And based on that too, I think the young people would have a different sense of moving forward by listening to that kind of music. I'm not saying they should listen to that all the time, but it should be part of their curriculum where it was important that they hear these lyrics. I have a good friend who went to school with me, and he taught at a school in Point Fountain. He did social studies, and for the duration of his teaching career, he used calypsos. Merchant, teach, build a better trend.
Absolutely.
You know,
But they're teaching tools, understanding history, and so many of the young people cannot relate to that because they are from a different era. So it is our responsibility to keep Israel to will repeat its mistakes, which we see that. And by the way, I just wanted to say on the issue with Black Stalin, I don't know, I'm not wrong about this, but I think I am accurate. Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, attributed his ability to say, Stalin taught him watching Stalin, because a lot of these big big name musicians, they they actually had a recording studio in Montserrat.
Yes.
Where they would do their recording, and then it came. Anyway, the point was that he said that he learned to command a stage and to use a stage and move from Black Stalin. That is Mick Jagger.
Yeah, a lot of the prominent musicians out in a foreign. I was told one time I did an interview because I try to stay total local. One time I did an interview with Mrs. Bootman, and she said all of them came here to understand calypso and the rhythm, because if you listen to all music has a calypso taste to it. All. So we don't respect that kind of thing, and it's a fight I've been fighting for that kind of respect. And it still isn't happening. Only when people like the Black Stalin, Dr. Leroy Callis, on his passing, everybody jump on board like bandwagoners. You understand? So I understand that about the Trini culture. So I just leave it to the rest, but I will stick to it all the time.
Yeah, but there's a lot to be done, and in terms of keeping our culture alive and our history alive and building our nation, and just that song, someone sent it to me, and it so resonated with me. I played it so many times. I think I sent it to so many people. They're so fed up with me. I even sent it to my daughter, who's from a different generation. I don't think she even looked at it. But by the way, I do still have the cold because I had this terrible flu that's been going around, so my voice is hoarser than usual. But I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, we hear you nice and clear.
Yeah, I hope you hear your voice. And Richard has seen Richard.
Yes, he just joined.
I'm not seeing him.
Yeah, he has a camera that has to warm up.
Oh, okay. But so his passing really meant a lot. And of course, he's from South. I don't know. We just mentioned that, by the way. Yeah?
Yes,
BTW.
Yes.
Oh my God. I can't help it.
I can't help it either.
And Caribbean man. He's so conscious lyrics, That's what I love about him.
He didn't have the opportunity to go to secondary schools and all of that, So this is a natural gift that he has.
For sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, Caribbean Man is the perfect example.
Yes.
Of how he tells them he went to a big institution and they can unite the Caribbean, and they say, listen to me, it's one race, everybody come from one place, and this kind of thing on the same ship, we make the same trip, so that historical aspect of it tells you that the Calypsonians back in the day, they read a lot. They were in tune with everything that's happening, local, regional.
Richard is with us.
Yeah, he's with us. Yeah. Good afternoon, Richard.
Good afternoon. I was here all the time. Daddy Mac represented me well.
I haven't seen you since last year. Where have you been? I was holding since last year. I haven't seen you.
Look at this fantastic face I missed out on since last year. I mean, come on. All the best to you to 2023 and beyond. It looked like it has begun to happen already. I mean, this is
I come alive when I come on the show. I come alive when I come on the show because I'm sure you're hearing the hostess in my voice. So England doesn't agree with me in the winter at all. I don't agree with it. It doesn't agree with me. But you learn, you see a lot of things that you appreciate your country more. And at the same time, you see, I don't know if the right word is the strength of the people in terms of, well, I mean, it was inconvenience to us because they shut down the rail and the bus for nearly a week completely, completely. No buses, no trains. I mean, I've never heard anything like that. So you had no public transport for, I think from the 3rd to the 7th. And now you're having healthcare workers. So you see the struggles of what is so-called developed nations and so on. And sometimes it makes you, you say to yourself, why are we not willing to stand up, or we not allowed, or we not being allowed? Because I think there have been 2 applications for marches and they have not been allowed, and it, makes you wonder to what extent we really are developing our democracy to allow the people to have their constitutional rights to expression of, freedom of expression, political expression. Yeah,
Karen, that is only something that is often when a party is outside a government. When they get inside, the same people that went to and say, no, we are your best friends. We are going to put things in place here once we get in. As soon as the people put them in, the people who put them in becomes, the least group, if I could say so, that the government wishes to take seriously, Because once they get inside, the next goal is to find a way to stay here without having to do anything for them, very little or nothing, All you want is to be in office. That's your job. You're among the leading group of the country, the leading group of people of the country. I mean, so, and I'm saying that to say that is why this will be like a recurring problem. Because the people outside now will try to make you believe if they get in, it won't be this way. So they will fight now to say people have a right to be heard, freedom and democracy, you have the rights enshrined under the law and the constitution and this and that. But if they get inside and people start to march, you hear them, well, no, this was denied and this was shut down and this and same thing. Not with this government alone, not with those on the other side, but it's all over the world. They only like the people.
I think, hello?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. You think that?
No. I think one of the ways to address that exactly, because in fact, I only just come home maybe the next day, and anyway, this young man who works at one of the big supermarkets, and took out my stuff for me, and he said to me, "Oh yes, all it happens is promises. We're tired of it, tired of hearing you say promises." So I think one of the ways to address that, which is a very, very, very relevant point, is that all of us tend to be the armchair critics, can always tell you what's wrong and what should be done right. But there are opportunities, I think, for people to actually start projects, that entrepreneurial projects, as a sort of laboratory test, and start rolling them out. so that people will see that if you were to be put into government, that you will honor that and you will start doing what you can. And the funding doesn't have to come from the government or NGOs here. I mean, the so-called developed countries done so much damage to the world with regard to the climate change, because the carbon emission is certainly not coming from the Caribbean. The whole issue of reparations has become a much bigger issue than it was before. The whole issue with regard to all these wars, this with Ukraine and Russia and all, and the need. I mean, all of these things have awakened a lot of what so-called former colonies, that we are now willing to say, no, we are not just taking the little ends we can demand. And I think one of the things we should be demanding, and I think I would like to see, and I would like to do actually more of that, is to actually do these sort of blueprints of what can be done. Because you know, it's all right to say what's wrong, but then you have to show the hope, and the hope has to be done through actually implementation. And I think that is a starting point, so that people will begin to believe that if you were to come then, you would bring change, and you would, because you're already doing it and you're not on the inside as yet. I don't know
no
how
one
you
can
think about
accuse
that.
you though of being a armchair politician. You put your hat in the ring, and you did so because you want to add value to the country and want to help the country change the course that it is currently on. And I felt it would have been a good change. I still think it's a necessary change. I still think it is a change that has to be made. It's just when we get to that point, I do believe the change will come, perhaps sooner than we believe. I do believe the change will come.
I
But
think I have to do more though,
yeah,
Richard. If I'll say
mm,
this, you know, because you get a chance for self-reflection and introspection, and you have to be also objective. And I mean, that's why I think that Calypso by Stalin, God rest his soul, meant so much to me when he said that, you know, I can't write this song because oil money come, oil money go, and we still living in the ghetto. And where have we think? I said, when I see you divide money in this country, then I will write the song about a Jamchi in the party. So it's not, you know, you might take it on a superficial level, but what he's really saying is so many of us, and many may not know, do not know, that I have a foundation called the Reach for the Stars Foundation. And over the years, um, myself and two other persons, so I shall not mention their names, but we have never, ever taken any money at all out of, not a cent, and never used it for political purposes. And over the years, used it to give laptops, short-term scholarships, help, and a number of things. I've done that quietly in honor of my husband too. And I want to do more. And I hope that soon I will be able to do more, because I feel that too many of us, and I will kind of include myself in it in a way, that you need to do more. You need to inspire people by action. And when they see that there can be a different way, and they can be entrepreneurs, and and when you show them that, maybe they start believing in themselves. Because a lot of the problems, I think, that we have now is a lack of self-belief and self-worth, which is fueling the ability for young men, especially, to get involved in crime, because they don't value themselves. They don't see any value in themselves. They've been told they're worthless. And the government and the prime minister, so disgraceful and so disgusting they are to me. I have to say it in that way. So disgraceful and disgusting they are, right? You know what is causing the crime. Everybody knows, you know. Talk about family values. Stop that nonsense. You know exactly, that is very, very, very dangerous road to go down, right? A very dangerous road to go down, because many children, and it's not now, come from single homes. And for you to tell a whole group of people that you are a criminal because your father is not in the house. Of course, having your father in the house is the best situation. But there are a lot of people living in rural communities that don't have the father living in the house, that are living in near poverty, and you don't have the kind of violence and crime. The crime is in the urban areas. The crime is in the urban areas. And when it goes in the rural communities, the people are coming from the urban areas. So why don't you find out what is it in the urban communities, the fueling crime? Because in the rural communities, they have single parents. There are lots of mothers who do not have their fathers in the house. So what are those are the conditions, instead of telling people nonsense and deflecting responsibility when you very well know what's the cause of the problem. I feel passionately about that, because too many young people.
In effect, is that when you listen to them, they annoy you, and I've called on them repeatedly to stop annoying the people of Trinidad and Tobago with that type of nonsensical talk. You're right. You and I know they know what the real problem is, but they come up every Monday morning to try to make people feel, hey, we just discovered another dimension of the same problem. This is what it is. Oh, no, it wasn't that. It's this. Or this another part of the problem. When they know what the root cause of the problem is, and they're not touching it. And once they're not touching it, the rubbish they're speaking could only amount to annoyance of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. What I said,
it's not just annoyance, Richard. So let me say one thing on that, because again, this period has given a period of reflection. I'm not saying it's correct, but I do know that the best way, data is important. And in order to address an issue, you've got to have the information, you've got to have the data. So one of the things that the government should do, and I'm sure it's not going to, they could probably get an international organization to fund it too, with all this climate change issues that we are all faced with, rain falling and we're in the middle of January, second week of January. And what you do need to do is do the survey, the statistical information. And one of the things is look at different communities, rural, urban, different communities. Then you look at employment status. Then you look at family status, single parents thing. I am positive if they start doing that, the data, if they do it in a wide enough catchment group, try not so big, I am sure the data is going to show that the common nexus is less to do with single parenting, less to do with that, and more to do with the fact of the ills of urban poverty, which makes recruitment of these young men very easy. And the solution is create entrepreneurs out there, but you don't want them to be entrepreneurs because they have to be ready. And they have to be ready and available to provide these foot soldiers for those who are running, who are responsible for the crime in this country. And we close our eyes to it, and it's, I think that's one of the things the government needs to do. Instead of saying things like family values, what are you basing it on? Where's your data? Where's the empirical study? How are you just saying those things like that? Because when you're saying that, everybody knows which group of people you're talking about. Which group of people you're talking about. It's just like urban prime. It's all kind of using semantics, and it is very destructive. It's a very destructive thing, but that's to keep you in your place. Because when you don't feel good about yourself, you are in a mental slavery, and you stay right there available. So instead of coming out with every week with some nonsense, why can't you do a proper survey and find out what is the common factor for that needs to crime? Is it single parents? What is it? And I have a feeling when they do that study, it's less about single parenting, which will be a factor, and more to do with the issues of urban poverty.
Karen, and when you talk about they know what they're doing, and what they're doing is to keep you right there, we could drill a little further. When they leave you right there, they leave you right there to accept anything, Karen. People could use you. People could abuse you. You'll accept any, as you have said in this program before, any demeaning job just to get ahead, because you have been technically deceived in a way that puts you out of the mainstream or whatever is taking place in the country. And you're just on the outside there as an alien hoping for something. And that's what the politicians tend to do. Make you feel, while they put you out there, wait right there, something coming until they need you. They come with a small bag of goodies and making you feel, this is it. From this day forward, you're back in mainstream. And when they get your vote again, they forget it right there. So that they are conditioning the people who support them in particular, Karen, to just be hustlers, and develop a type of patience to wait until someone of them get a little call to play a little role somewhere. And for that call, they would stay there quietly and they would praise all the nonsensical things that the government do, such as presiding over 613 murders for the year. You know, hear some people saying it's only 50-something more murders. That's what those people outside reach to, you know, who calling in on shows. Only 50-something more murders, only 60-something more murders. Well, let the only be one of their relatives, one of their family members, and hear how they would feel and what they would say. But they know 60-something people murdered. But that is only, these are, I mean, and that's what they have done to the people, Karen, and it is sad. What is your reaction to this government creating such a legacy for itself in the context of breaking a record of 550 and in the process creating one that they ended up at, we are told so far, at 613, but there are more stuff they bring into the table, the police, that could push it up to 620. How you react to that? It's the worst performance I have ever seen.
I would not say that they like it so in so much as it's the responsibility of the government to lead and to govern, and it's part of their playbook. And the unfortunate thing is that the persons who are the victims and also the perpetrators, but they're also victims, also people. I have no illusions that a lot of those boys are bad boys, you know, and they reach a point where you can't turn them around, you know. You can't, some of them, you can't turn them around. You know? They grew up in that, you know. They grew up too much in it. That's all they know. And they have no value under their own self, much less for you. So, I mean, there's almost a lost generation within that group. So, I mean, let's not romanticize them. I'm not romanticizing them. I understand that they are. But what I'm saying is there is a solution and there are solutions, and the government is capable of implementing some of these solutions. And instead of doing that, all they do is using dog whistles to tell you, you know, you are there because you didn't have a father in your house, or you do have an education, you do have so and you do have that. I'm not saying those are not contributing factors, but that's not helpful. You are there to the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. You are there for us. Just not for 5%, just 2% or 3%, you know, and not, especially when that small percentage is not assisting the country's national development, especially when you are facilitating that through them. And that's, anyway, I mean, you know, more needs to be done. And I think one of the things I would love the government to do is, instead of every Monday morning coming out with a new theory as to why there's crime, do a study and get the empirical data, and then you'll be able to find out, well, what is driving what is the impetus for so much of the crime and violence in the society, and where is it coming from? Where are the areas in the country it's coming from? That will help you a lot.
Karen, before the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, became the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in 2015, he did say, and Daddy Mac has it there, that if you can't solve the crime problem, then you are part of the problem, and in other words, you should step aside and allow somebody else to come in. Now he has come in, and between 2015 and now, when he came in 2015, he ended up in second and third for presiding over the most amount of murders ever. And as you know, last year, he ran past the record, he broke it. That would be a major legacy. Anytime I hear,
you know what the record he broke? You know the record he broke?
The record he broke? His legacy.
Yeah, but you want to know another record he broke?
Which
Only
one?
188 people in his constituency of thousands of PNM voters. In 188 of them voted in the Prime Minister's constituency. That's a record I show you broke. You want another record you show you broke? It had to go down in the record of having annual conventions. of having over 12,000 people and only 844 people vote. It wasn't a convention, it was a fact. That's a convention. That's your records. Those American records. Don't be pleased with them.
No, it's true. He's a record breaker. Yes. He's only breaking records and setting new ones of things that are all bad, according to John the Baptist. All bad. I've heard about you, and the news was all bad. That was John the Baptist. Yeah. He said, yes, we heard about you. I was talking about the king back then. Yeah. Anyway, and you're selling him, I know about you and your brother. All bad.
The issue of the today, of the big issue today.
Yeah, the issue of today is those fellas back in those times, scripture will tell you, they laid the foundation for all me discussing, I mean, what happened then is happening now only in different ways. So he presided after putting out, Dr. Rowley, that if you cannot control the crime problem in the country, in other words, your government should resign and all should step out the way. What should happen to this government given what happened last year? The amount of the record setting year for murders.
Well, I mean, that's just talk. I mean, he said also the reason why he, I think he said it was the issue with Cold Heart and the lack of transparency and accountability that was the last straw for him years ago. Well, if that was really it, he's doing a darn good job with the procurement legislation, making sure that the procurement legislation is done.
When the opposition now was in government and it had murders, he also said if they can't control crime, they should remember they were changing a lot of ministers of national security.
Yeah, they were.
When they changed about 4 or 5, he said, "Oh, should get out the way." Yeah, get out the way. So who should get out the way now? This bad. It was never this bad. Who should get out the way now?
We know that. I mean, but you know, what I will say on the issue of crime, I think I would divide it into 2 compartments, but they all lead to the same end, which is the violence we're seeing on the street. That is the obvious crime of murder and so on that we're seeing, which is being directly related to the drugs and transshipment of drugs and guns and so on. A more direct link is there. When you hear that the acting controller of customs says that how long the scanner is not working, they coming in months now, nothing scanning going in, and maybe one was working and donated by the US, and when it going out, nothing scanning going out, and the commissioner of police telling it, and most of the guns and the drugs coming in through the ports, but none of the scanners working. What you say to that? When you pass DNA legislation, listen, the bottom of this government, I put it in 2: lack of implementation and lack of enforcement. 2 things: implementation and enforcement. So they may pass a law, they don't enforce the law.
But Karen, there's a third.
What is it?
Third, Karen, the over application of old talk.
But that's where it comes from. If you have lack of implementation and lack of enforcement, it means you're doing nothing except talking.
But that's it. But as you break
that's what it is.
Break it down to 3. Let people know you're not implementing A, you're not implementing B, but you're overkilling the people with the application of talk.
Yeah, and all the things that you know that need to be done. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to know. Please, got the DNA. Stop having it sent abroad. Every person who is accused of a indictable offense, or an offense that could go either way, their DNA should be taken and stored. That's how they're solving crimes all in America, which has over 300 million people. They're able to do it. We have 1.4 million people. Why aren't they not storing and being able to analyze the DNA things, have a storage of them, and be able to solve solving crime? That's one. The ballistics. That's on it. The CCTVs, the scanners. I mean, those are also obvious and everything not working. But the other part, which is more less obvious, but as equally as potent, but less obvious, is the lack of passage of the procurement legislation. And not only procurement legislation, but procurement legislation, because as long as we do not have a proper procurement legislation, the government will have to answer to their financiers. The government will have to do the bidding of their financiers, and they will, and that is basic corruption in our society. When you have gambling casinos left, right, and center with the money laundering, and up to now you cannot implement. You're passing and not implementing. You're implementing and you're not enforcing. You're passing. It's all done deliberately. On different levels to ensure that this country continues to foster, or foster is not the correct word, fester in crime and criminality, and the government pretends it does not know the reason, but it's because they're single family homes, because there's only a mommy in the home. And that's the reason.
And that is what I call disinformation. They know they had to say something, so give them disinformation. But why give them disinformation? To make them feel we are aware of the problem. We're studying it even further, but this is what we came up with so far. But we're going to look in the meantime, only apply proper parenting to your family, talk to your family, and stop harboring criminal. I mean, I'm telling you, it's the worst performance. To some people, it might sound good to them, but to sensible or reasonable people in this country, I mean, I don't even I heard there was a press conference today, Karen, and I asked who was the main speaker, who is the main speaker. And when they tell me who it was, I said, I don't want to hear. Because I would pull it back up later because we're into this kind of business talk. But I said, no, I'll pull it back up later. You know who they told me was the person? The Prime Minister was going to talk. I said, come on. I'm sure he's not going beyond, and I want us to go back to the president now. He's going to the appointment of the president. He's not going to address the fact that he created a new record under his watch in murders and crime and criminality. And a 6-year-old girl was shot.
And oh my God.
Over the last weekend.
Oh my God.
You understand what I'm saying? And we heard it was a whole carload of gunmen come out and in camouflage outfit, and they open fire in the house, and who get shot in the shoulder, got it in the leg, and the poor little girl got it in her chest, and she has now gone into everlasting sleep. How the Prime Minister has and put his mouth on the record to say something has to happen. He should have.
He knows what has to happen. He can't do it.
Police. He should have called the minister. They should have sit together and have a. They should have addressed. This is why when they told me, hold on, there was a press conference. That's why I thought it was going to be about. But then I asked, who is leading it? And they told me the Prime Minister. I said, oh, that is the president, because he hear the opposition come out and talk about it's wrong. And this, he come out to beat the opposition leader. I tell you, you have a big stick. All he believes his relevance is in this country is to continue telling the country he can tell that lady whatever he chooses to tell her in whichever way. And he believes he's scoring political points off of that conduct alone, not remembering he's the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And people like me wanted to hear him today in a press conference with the Minister of National Security, the Police Commissioner, to address the situation of that 6-year-old girl. And may I add, if it was a white girl, 6 years had suffered that, he'd have been there with a long table of officials to tell the country this is unacceptable and it must stop now, and we will do what we can, and so on and so on. That's the nonsense that I hear. So it's a 6-year-old African girl. That's how it appears like to me. That is not news. That's gang related. That little girl was in a gang. Whether she was linked to family members who
the gangs are the ones outside, the real gangs are. Anyway, we have prosecuted that enough. In the sense that from this point of view, they're not going to solve it.
They won't.
They have no intention.
They could, but it's no accident, as you said. And if it's no accident,
they can't solve it. They can't solve it
because their handlers will not allow it.
Yes, they can't solve it. And guess what? Mr. Prime Minister? Guess what, Mr. Prime Minister? The country knows it. There's either there are people who are benefiting from it, and directly, or people indirectly because they get in chairmanship and board appointments, and there's some people who are seduced by power and power and money. And also there's fear component. People are afraid to speak out because they feel they will be punished. So don't think that, and I know everyone, you think people respect you? You think people respect you and your ministers? You don't, I know, no, they don't. Not any right-thinking person, and I'm not talking a person who is political.
I'm running in that, Karen, and I do it often in Tobago, and I start doing it in Trinidad, just like what John the Baptist said again. All bad, all bad. This is it.
No, but they don't have respect. You don't respect them.
None.
Have respect for them.
None.
No respect. He's not fooling anybody. I don't know who he thinks he's fooling now. It's not fooling anybody. And no matter what it says, look at what happened in when they had in the last election for the thing which I lost badly. 10,000 less people voted, and they had about 30,000 more people.
Badly. I am putting it on the record here today. I still believe that was managed.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter whether it's managed or not.
I know, but I'm telling you,
10,000 people less came out.
Yeah.
10,000 people less came out.
Yeah.
How you feel about that?
You should be ashamed. Didn't come out this time, and he was on the ballot.
Not only that.
Yeah, he was on the ballot.
Not only 10,000 people less came out, but there are 30,000 more persons in the party registered. And why a local government election? You're afraid because you know you will lose. Tobago House of Tobago, you get licks in your own Awi boy, you get licks in your own country, and now you're postponing the local government election because you know you're going to get licks. Because even when Kamala was at her worst, she still got an extra seat. You don't want everybody. You're not fooling anybody. That's what I want to tell you. You're not fooling anybody, and I don't get personal. I don't insult people personally. I don't get into. I can do that. I'm not going down that road. Not because I can't, because it's not worth it. But I can tell you, I have no respect for you. I can tell you that for sure. And I have no respect for your government because you do not care about the people, and you do not care about the people of this country. You are not a businessman. You are not running a private corporation. You are put there to look after the interests of the people of this country. And if you could have done a worse job, I don't know what a worse job you could have done as a prime minister to advance the interests of the people of this country, whether it is in foreign exchange reserves that you have destroyed, whether it is importing food the extent to which we import food into this country, whether it is in relation to the Heritage Stabilization Fund that has lost a lot of its value, whether it is in relation to the debt to GDP, whether it is in relation to the fiscal deficits that you have run, and you want to say you have a balanced budget, when Paria, your so-called replacement company, owing over $1 billion, $500 million to suppliers of fuel, that you can't supply the fuel to the countries in the region, a complete and total failure as a government. And on top of that, you insult people, you speak down to people, and your ministers that have the same approach, no respect for the people that put you there. Disrespectful. I've never seen anything. I don't think Kamala never did that, even though I'm not a supporter of Kamala. You know, I can't remember doing that. I can't remember Mr. Manning doing anything like that. Talking anyway in vulgar, crass language. And his ministers and the same attitude. People are afraid of them. But I tell you, they don't respect you all. Anybody that right thinking do not respect you. They fear you. They fear you. They fear you. They fear you. And they fear, I tell you that. They fear you. And they fear those little cabal of ministers you have around you. Because they fear them. Because they know what is behind. And who are the puppeteers. And you could get as mad as you want with what I say, but you know is the truth, and the people of Trinidad know is the truth. And instead of helping the little boys, you're taking them and making them feel worse. Because you know why? Because those in charge of this country need a source of labor to do their dirty work. And so
Karen,
you're ashamed.
Karen, this is a handled government. I want to repeat that.
That's a good word.
Government.
The history will say it, you know, right now everybody afraid. But you see, 20 years from now, when they write in the period of his prime ministership, the truth will come out. Don't worry, it will all come out. Then we'll have
something like this prime minister was handled. and he also
Handled.
presided over, yes, and he handled,
Handled.
and he also presided over the most amount of murders ever. He broke the record and created one that they believe no other government in this country may ever reach. And that is because of how he's being managed by certain people in this country.
Handled. I love your word handled.
Let's say
I like the word handled. You have his handlers. You have his handlers. And guess what? You can say what you want. We don't believe you. You can say what you want. We don't believe you. All right? And you could be crass, and you could be rough, and you could be saying we don't believe you, and more importantly, we don't respect you.
From 2015 to now, this gentleman has done nothing to attract any form of respect or any other thing from me. And the thing that threw it up for me early was early is when he told the country, Astra Javid, she did an article in January 2016 after this man campaign and had me out there too in different places on the radio, fair play, talking about people going to be brought to justice, have me believing that he had evidence. Now I know it appears as though he had nothing and those people were innocent. So which means my takeaway now is that the people were being deceived all along. The people on the opposition are decent people. They are not criminals, and I don't know them to be crooks. Well, okay. I don't know that.
Don't go so far now.
Yeah, no, because but he's the one. He had me. How I should say, caught up in it too, because of the
But now you've seen the light.
Evidence, that once he gets in, you remember you're campaigning on jail for them, jail and more jail, and you'll see. I said, well, this is no nonsense fella. The man had the record. I mean, we let the chips fall where they may. Let's hear the tree talking about people walking in ministry and signing for permanent secretary. You didn't hear that? Contractors walking in ministries and signing and taking up money and people running. Give me the impression and the promenade as though he had all these things because he said there, once he got in, it will be jail for those people. Well, he got in.
Anyway, let's talk about the president because he might be surprised.
Hold on. Yeah. Huh? So watch this. When he got in, I said on my show, well, 2 months have gone. It must have one or two persons who should already be heading towards the court to clear the name. What's the problem? I got calls telling me to stay off the topic. Next thing I know, Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, a month later, is telling him, hey, after all the promises, it has some low-hanging fruits. Too much old talk. There are some people who you can deal with now. Deal with them. That was in December. In January, how he responded to that at 2016, that was the first sign that told me, this guy, if I had any respect for him after what he did in January of 2016, if not all went, well, the substantive part of what caused me to have had respect for him, that part was gone. It was gone. He said in January, Karen, he pulled out an article and he read it, some investigative report that Astra Javid was doing, right? And she was talking about what the government that immediately preceded his own did on one or two matter. And hear him now. This is a very serious matter. And the police and others should look at this article and they should follow it and they should take the relevant action. And he concluded with this. But we are the executive and we do not investigate crime. We cannot bring people to justice. So we cannot arrest nor charge anybody. No, we knew that all along. We thought you would table the evidence you had to the police and allow them to do what was required. And since that day, I tell you, I made it clear to them, I don't want anything from this administration. I was supposed to get something we were discussing. I say I don't want it anymore. And don't dangle anything before me. I am not a carrot dancer. Ask Daddy Mac. Don't dance no carrot for me until the movement to the carrot.
You didn't dance?
No.
You have to tell him, wait, Dorothy, wait.
This one I will not dance. No, Karen. I am no dancer.
What you have to tell him is, wait, Dorothy, wait.
Yes. Wait, Dorothy, wait. Until I see our people get a fair shake of the pie. And my people, meaning the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, African, Indians, mixed everywhere, especially the poor, until I see they could come out and go to the hospital and get proper medical care, and they could leave their door open and do others to study crime and guns off the street and drugs being pushed back. Until those things happen, keep your carrot and you put it where you told us the monkey puts the nuts. It is clear that you have been studying monkeys. You know very well about the parts of the monkey, but you don't know the parts where gun coming from.
And an important part of your prescriptions is that what it must do also is to create entrepreneurial opportunities for a lot of these young people, because if there are many opportunities that benefit. But you see, if you do that, then they will start to think of themselves as businessmen, and they will then start to have self-worth, and then they will have to have self-confidence, and then they will feel that they can be part of the society and not just be used. And then what will happen is the persons who need the cara dancers, who need lots and lots of cara dancers, they start running out of cara dancers to do their work. And all of a sudden, you can't control them anymore, because you can't dangle something from them, because you know what? I have my own business, and I am being successful, and I'm seeing my way, and I'm providing for my family, and I'm paying taxes, and just now I'm building. And you know what will happen then? I'm going to lose control of you, because that was my control mechanism of you. And I'm going to lose that control. And I care so little about you. I care so little about you. I care so much about me, and talk about pleasing my handlers, that I have to keep you in a state of perpetual poverty and a lack of self-worth. And in order to do that, you must never consider yourself. He should be talking, you know what he should be talking? Entrepreneurial opportunities, creating these sort of like what you'd call blueprints for young men, and in both in rural and in urban communities, and getting funding. I'm sure you could get funding, grant funding from a lot of the big international organizations. I mean, there's so much that can be done, but you see, if that happens, then the control is lost. The control is lost, and that cannot happen. That cannot happen. Anyhow, we say we're talking about
the president now. What's your reaction to the government's choice for president, and your reaction also to the opposition's position? How you react to both sides?
Okay, so you know, it was a good thing that I thought to look more closely at the topic rather than from a very superficial level. And it is true that when you look at our Republican democracy, the democratic republic, it is true that the president is commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He or she is the head of state and the repository of executive authority, which means that executive is the government. So in a sense, she or he really does represent, to a large extent, the government. And if there's any doubt that the election of a president can come from the ruling party, from a political appointment, it is clear from the Constitution that he or she, that is the case. And the reason I'm saying that very, very clearly is in the legislation itself. That's why the issue is not such a simple matter. For example, if you wish to become, you put yourself forward or elected by the government to be the office of the president, you have to, according to Section 24, where elected, you have to vacate your seat in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, which means automatically that the selection or election of a president can come from the House of Representatives, can come from the Senate, can come from a person who has a political appointment. Secondly, when the president is the substantive president is abroad, and that's Section 27, or is ill or whatever reason, the person, according to Section 27 of our Constitution, who stands in this, and acts on behalf of that president, is firstly the president of the Senate. And the president of the Senate, obviously, is going to be an person who would have been is elected or selected by the members of the Senate, the majority of whom are members of the government. And that is what happened with the coup. When we had the coup, that's why Emmanuel Carter was the acting president of the Republic, because at the time, the actual substantive president, Nur Hassan Ali, was out abroad. And so the legislation recognizes that a president of the Senate will act for the president of the Republic in where he or she is abroad or ill. And if not the president of the Senate, then you go down to the Speaker of the House. So there is no question that the legislation itself anticipates and contemplates that the election of a president can come from a political appointee. There's no question about it. We're not talking about the right or wrong of it. That's our constitution, and it's clear that we do that. Not only that, they say the president, I actually went to the website, is the repository of executive authority. What does that mean? Executive is the role of the government to running the country. But his or her role of executive authority is circumscribed by having to act on the advice or in consultation with in many instances, with either the prime minister or the leader of the opposition. And in fact, in many instances, even though there's hardly anything that can happen of an executive nature that cannot be done without the president being involved, the legislation does limit the exercise of executive power by the president. And it says so either by saying that they act on the advice or in consultation with the president, prime minister, and the leader of the opposition. And Section 80 says, except where other provision is made in the exercise of his function, the president shall act in accordance with the advice of cabinet. So what I'm saying, really, to start off the discussion and to try to be objective, and I am come from teaching background, so that is also informing my approach. I would say that you cannot really say that the government has no legal basis or authority to appoint the president, to select as their appointee the president of the Senate, Christine Kangaloo. She was a member of parliament under Prime Minister Mr. Manning. She's been president of the Senate, but the legislation facilitates and contemplates that. And further, when you look at the electoral college, the way that the electoral college goes about electing the president, it is heavily weighted in favor of the government of the day, because it is the legislation says all the members of the House of Representatives and all the members of the Senate, and whoever gets the majority, whatever thing is secret ballot, becomes the president. So what I'm saying is that if we're looking at it from a strictly constitutional position, the government is within its rights to select as their candidate or nominee Christine Kangaloo. And the legislation, in fact, seems to contemplate that would happen. So that's my initial response on that. However, the difficulty with that is that the president really is not completely without independent authority or discretion. So therein lies the tension. Therein lies the tension, because the president can, in his own discretion or her discretion, appoint 9 senators. The president, a state of emergency, even though he or she has to proclaim the state of emergency, it cannot be complete unless the president declares that he or she is satisfied that the conditions exist. So there is a big area for the exercise of discretion in a state of emergency, which is an important function, the appointment of independent senators, but also the revocation and appointment of the leader of the opposition. It actually says in the legislation, if the president, in his or her judgment, is of the view that the member of the House of Representatives is no longer best able to command the support of the majority of those members, the president shall revoke the appointment of the leader of the opposition. Look at the powers the president has independently of the government. So revocation of the appointment of the leader of opposition, and of course we know the famous case of A.N.R. Robinson, where we had a split 1818, and the section in the Constitution says, at the end of the day, it is the decision of the president that he thinks who is the person most likely to command the support of the members of the House. That is a huge discretion. So on one end, you have the right of the court of the government to elect or nominate for appointment a political appointee, so to speak, because it gives provision for that. And on the other end, it's saying that he or she can't act without without consulting or the advice of the Prime Minister. But on the other hand, as I don't know if you remember this case of Bain in 1987. In 1987, under the Constitution, you cannot inquire, no court of law can inquire into whether or not the president has consulted with the Prime Minister. You know that? You cannot, in Bain case, when there was a change of government, and the A.N.R. Robertson said that he was not consulted by Ellis Clark for the selection of Bain to some of the commission, Police Service Commission. He went on affidavit and said he was not consulted after he became Prime Minister. Ellis Clark, he said, did not consult with him. They went to court, and the court said you cannot inquire into whether or not there was consultation. So even though the legislation says that the president has to consult or get the advice of the Prime Minister, at the same token, they cannot inquire into whether, the court cannot inquire into whether that was done. And more importantly now, if you want to remove a president, it's almost impossible. So that is why, I know I'm giving like a long treatise, but that is why Richard, in this selection or election of a president, the governing party, the government, has to be very careful that it does not put someone there who is going to undermine or sabotage their ability to run the government, because the powers of the president in proclaiming laws, assenting to laws, appointments, all of these powers, a revocation of the appointment of the leader of opposition, appointment of the leader of the opposition, appointment of a prime minister where there's no clear leader. All of those powers, the state of emergency cannot be declared even after the proclamation unless the president declares that he or she is satisfied that the conditions exist under Section 8.2. The powers of a president in this country under our constitution are so extensive that one cannot really argue with the fact that any government will want someone to be elected who will not sabotage or act against its interests. Now, when you do that, you pay a price, because that is going to abuse your democracy. You pay a price for doing that. I feel I've taken a position that you did not consider to be. I don't think you considered that I would have taken that position on the matter, Richard. But I would say that I do understand it's a difficult situation. And at the end of the day, it is the right of the government. And I understand why the government would want to have that right. And the fact that they can't remove them when they put them in there. The president is immune from any prosecution. You can't inquire whether she consulted with you or not. So you have to be very careful who you put as president. And it cannot be somebody who you do not feel is going to be, is not going to sabotage or be too independent of the government. And that is because, and the price you pay is the Paula May Weeks issue with Gary Griffith, when it was clear that she was told, in my view, that Paula May Weeks was told to tell the then chairman of the Police Service Commission to take back her merit list when she had no authority to do that. But she obviously was, I believe that she was instructed to do that. And those are the risks that you take when you have these kinds of appointments.
But Karen,
yes,
I agree with you. I agree with you fully that the government had to put somebody who they believe they could work with, and whom they believe, you know, they have a relationship with. I'll go that far because of the reasons that you highlighted. Because of a president who isn't, based on our constitution, working in a way with a slight leaning towards the government could really make things hard for the government to govern. So I get that. But you can't get bright overnight. Could a person get bright overnight?
Is it bright? What do you mean?
Well, if you move from being lacking knowledge in major areas, could you just suddenly acquire all the knowledge that you were lacking the day before and have it the day after?
What's the knowledge that you have to have? Being a politician, you know, look, a politician in Yugoslavia is a comedian.
No, Karen, I'm talking about any human in general. Could a human being, right, lack knowledge today on just about everything and tomorrow get up with knowledge on everything?
I don't know. Listen, let me just say, let me be very transparent. I know
Karen,
Christine
it's not
Kangaroo.
you. I'm going somewhere with this. You did a fine
Okay,
job.
go somewhere because I'm not following you. So go ahead.
All I want you to do is answer me. Do you know of any human being who had no knowledge one day, but the very next day had all the knowledge?
No, I do.
Thank you, Karen. That was all.
But I don't know your point, though.
No, well, you apprehended fear, Karen. There's no need.
I don't understand your point.
One. Come on, I'm committed. So I said I agree with you, Karen, that a government would need to have a president that they believe would be inclined to work with the government. Christine is Kangaloo? Yeah, I think she's a fine person to be president, honestly. She has acted enough times. She's been very firm in the chair of the Senate. She's been she's an attorney, right? And she has been very supportive to the government. She comes across as being very loyal to the government. The government might need that type of person as president. There are plenty of current issues that will come up and they'll call on the president to say something and they would want to know. Whatever the president had to say, the language might be used not to be hitting the government too hard. You can't tell. So, or the government would want to know that for a president who they can take up the phone and call and say, hey, I know you had to talk on that, but don't say it that way, you know. Let's give it
that is a very good point.
Yeah, they would want.
I know that. I understand
right.
that.
So through the government eyes, they're right to want to have a Christine Kangaloo. But if what Wade Mack said was the truth,
what did he say?
Wade Mack pulled up a piece of paper where he said when they were in government, Dr. Rowley's position was no sitting politician should become president. Now, I didn't hear him say that. I can't recall him saying that, but Wade Mack was able to show a paper with him. I don't know if he did it in an interview.
Why did he say that? Why did he say? What's the reason?
Well, he just held it up. I want to find that paper. But I'm going on one assumption. And the assumption is, if Wade Mack is speaking the truth, and Dr. Rowley did say that in the papers, and that he went on to say from what Wade Mack was saying, he will not support a sitting politician to become president. Then if you take that position, then for the reasons that would have led you to take that position, for the reasons that would have informed your decision to take such a position, this I was asking here, if a person could have knowledge, no knowledge one day and suddenly get all the next day, then what could cause you to deviate today from that profound position that you took, that has been expressed in the papers, and going with what Mark said, assuming if he was not in Parliament, they had a media conference. If that is true, because it's Parliament, you have protection. So I had to look at that too. He said what he said outside of the Parliament. And if what he was saying is true, then how could Dr. Rowley today now look back at that position when he was not the Prime Minister and throw all of his commentary out the window and do precisely what he said he will never do now that he's Prime Minister? Could that be right? What message that is sending?
Richard,
yeah.
Richard, you know something? I think my giving that explanation or whatever it is made you form the view that I support it. I absolutely do not support it. If you want an example, I said that's why it is true you need to have an executive president, because you're making a mockery of the whole system. If at one end you are saying that you can appoint a political appointee because the Constitution allows you to do that, but at the other end there are powers which the president in his own or her own discretion are exercisable without the Prime Minister having any say so. And then even where it says I must consult with you, you cannot go to court, be in case and say whether or not I consulted with you or not. You cannot do that. And you can't remove me. All of those things.
And you can't carry a sitting president to court.
Huh? You cannot. No, you can take immunity. No. There are two separate issues. And although they say, I'm probably looking at this as if I was teaching a class, but I want to be fair. I absolutely do not support it. I absolutely do not support it. And I mean, I know Christine Ganglou and her husband, Kerwin Garcia. Noel Garcia is his uncle. Auntie Garcia is his father. I mean, it's a family dynasty they're rebuilding here, right? And I like Christine Ganglou. I respect Christine Ganglou as a person. Kerwin Garcia was one of my former students who I had the highest regard for. And so this is not personal. All I'm saying is that the Constitution does allow for it. The Prime Minister said when you cannot control the crime, you should resign. He has resigned from that position. He's resigned from that position. So he's not nothing. So this is nothing new. The question is that which can happen. Are we going to have a repeat of Parliament weeks with the appointment of a commissioner of police, when it is very clear that the Prime Minister spoke to Parliament weeks, and all of a sudden the thing was withdrawn immediately. She had no power to give it back to what her name is, Sipasad. She had no chairman. She had no power. She just said she's a creature of statute, and all statute allows her to, under section 123.604, I can't remember the exact section, is once the merit list is given to her under 123.3 of the Constitution, she shall prepare the notification to Parliament. She has no authority to give back anything, to withdraw. Something to be withdrawn means it was given to you. If it was given to you, once it was given to you, the legislation is very clear. You can't give it back, because you were the same president that said when they wanted you to appoint an acting commissioner of police and an acting deputy commissioner of police, wrote to Trot or Blissy Prasad, I don't know, his two sisters, I can't remember which one it is, as the chair of the Police Service Commission, wrote her and told her that you are a creature of statute, that you have to operate within the confines of statute, and statute gives you no authority to appoint an acting commissioner or acting deputy commissioner, and that you cannot do it. When you knew you could not do it, then how you knew that you could hand back a merit list which was given to you, withdrawn immediately? What kind of language is that? What kind of semantic? That's playing with semantics. Something can't be withdrawn unless it was given to you, and there's nothing in the legislation that provided for the president to give it back. Yeah. She could not give it back once it was given to her, right? So if that could happen with the Gary Griffith issue, who I don't support Gary Griffith, by the way, but if you could do that with the Gary Griffith issue, because the Prime Minister happens to come on the same day as Sipasad is giving her the merit list. I do not know what Christine Kanglu will do. Christine Kanglu may be a nice person. I like her personally, but I'm quite confident you're right. If Paula Weeks was very much, I do not see her being able to have any level of independence. And what I am saying is that whilst the Constitution does contemplate a political appointment, it also contemplates a president that has independent discretion in critical areas. So therefore, how can you, if you have a president, it could never be a president who is so entrenched in politics of this country and the political, your father-in-law is Anthony Garcia. Your uncle-in-law is Noel Garcia. I mean, you were a minister in Patrick Manning government, and after Patrick Manning wasn't there, you went in this man's government, Rowley government, right? So you clearly are a person that will bend and do what you are sending these signals that you do not have any independence, which the Constitution still requires of you. It still requires that of you. And if you are going to be appointed, that is not a good appointment. You know, it's nothing personal against her, but she's too entrenched in the politics of this country, too entrenched in it at too many levels to
Karen,
able to have independence in her discretion.
You may be 100% right, and I am confident that I am highly inclined to support your reasoning.
Yeah, yes, I mean, maybe not. Listen, I am not saying anything against.
No. You're talking about a person. You're talking about a person who's entrenched in politics or not to be the president.
She was Minister of Legal Affairs.
And that's my position too. I think Christine is a nice lady. I think she's a firm lady, but she's not the issue. The issue is that she has been too entrenched, as you said,
and
in the
still
politics.
Entrenched.
Yeah, in
no
the politics.
Distance, no
years but what is worse for me, Karen, is that when I get that article, I'll come here and read it out if it's true that we're not caught up. Yeah. And I am certain if it was true, you're going to hear Dr. Rowley making the argument, just like what you're saying here. A certain politician will be too entrenched into the politics to become president. Much. And I'm certain you outline that such a president had to appoint the senators, the independent senators, and the government have 15, and they will end up with 24 because that person going to have to do what the government want them to do. So the senators, you follow what I'm saying?
But you see,
those were the sorts of things I am confident, knowing him as I do, he would have been speaking from, and the commissioners that the president had to appoint, and how those people impact the country in terms of their function.
That is the problem. That is the problem.
I am certain Dr. Rowley made those arguments.
The other issue is that once you make that appointment, you see, that's why, from their point of view, once you make that appointment, you can't move that person easily
until the term end.
And if you try to remove them, there's a whole process. 1/3 has to make a motion in writing to removal, and then 2/3 of
both
houses have to agree, and then you appoint a tribunal. You can listen.
And I will tell you, not
put them there, you can move them.
Because the persons the president put as independent senators and given no side the 2/3 to make that happen. Forget that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So not only you can't remove them, that's the thing. You remember with Okasi Paul, with the Speaker of the House, and they couldn't move her. So they had a limited state of emergency because they made a constitutional amendment.
They had to put under house arrest.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, from the government's perspective, the Constitution allows and contemplates that you could break somebody who's actually sitting in the House of Representatives right now, because it says that person shall vacate his seat as in the House of Representatives or the Senate once they are elected president. So the person doesn't even have to be away for 5 or 10 years. Could actually be in the House of Representatives as we speak now and be selected for nomination. But the problem is the issue for the government is, as I make any point, and they know that he's surrounded by legal advice. The problem is that he understands well that if he doesn't put somebody who he feels will do what his bidding, and he believes that she will do his bidding, that if he doesn't do that, he cannot remove her. He's stuck with her. Secondly, if she says, I am not reclaiming the state of emergency because I am not declaring that I am satisfied that the conditions exist for state of emergency. So she could stop a state of emergency by saying she is not, because that's what the law says, unless she in writing declares that he or she is satisfied that the conditions exist, the proclamation is ineffective. You know how much power that is? You want to get out of somebody who not going to be following your instructions, Imagine you have a president who's telling you, I am not satisfied that the conditions for the proclamation exist. What you going to do? The legislation gives her the right.
Karen,
and then on top of that, you can't remove her. You're almost stuck with her. And on top of that, if she goes and proclaims or censor and do anything she wants, and then you turn around and say, she did not consult with me, she did not get my advice, says, how are you going to prove that? You can't go in any court. We already decided that with the Bain case in 1987. It's non-justiciable. You cannot inquire into whether or not, and it's in the legislation, and the case law says you cannot inquire whether I consulted with you. Even if you go on affidavit and say, Chrissy Kangaroo did not consult with me with the appointment of A, B, and C. That kind of power that a president has, with A.N.R. Robinson, remember, streams into rivers, right? He tried to avoid that from ever happening again with 41 people. But he still, that power is there. If he's not satisfied, one person has the support, then what could happen? He can decide who's going to be prime minister. If you're talking about the leader of the opposition, if the president thinks they're not best able, hear those words. What does those words mean? Best able to command the support of the opposition, then you can revoke the appointment. You understand the power of a president.
But in that case, best able will mean to command, and in order for the president to be informed that he or she is not best able to do that, the opposition MPs would have to write him or her.
No. Well, I don't know if there's a procedure set up.
No, it has to be that way because it had no other way the president could become informed.
Well, listen.
That the person is not able to do so.
But guess what? Guess what's going to happen? It's time in the court for 3 years, and in the meantime, she has to step down, and somebody going to act for the president thing. What I am saying is, this is my point that I'm making. I do understand from the government's point of view why they want to put Christine Kangaroo, because of the wide discretion that a president has, and the fact that the legislation does contemplate it, and they did not create the constitution. That is
along, Karen, with the fact that it has precedent to support that.
Right. But at the same point in time, right. But at this, and not only that, with Gary Griffith, how the Parliament Weeks could tell people that the thing was immediately withdrawn. You cannot withdraw something means it was given to you and you gave it back. It was taken back. You can't.
And where's the power? Where's the authority the president had to give it back?
None at all, except the prime minister telling her to give it back.
Give it back.
He gave it back.
A voice telling you, overlook everything, just give it back.
Give it back.
And you acted on that without any support from the Constitution.
And you know what is the overarching concern?
And she was a judge, eh?
I don't worry about that. And
not a very nice judge.
Let me just tell you something. Unfortunately or fortunately, most of the people who are either in high office, whether judicial, legal, or otherwise, I've either been in class with them, or know them. So I am just going to tell you that those things do not, I'm not saying anything against Parliament Weeks at all, but I'm just saying, just telling me the office that they hold makes no difference to me. I have enough cynicism in me to know that those things do not matter to me. And I'm not saying anything against the former president. I've just said she immediately withdrew I cannot understand. And up to now, I wrote an article on it. So could you please explain what you mean by immediately withdrew? Because you said you're a creature statute and you can't do anything a statute doesn't let you do. So from the time you got that merit list, the only thing you could have done was prepare notification to send it to Parliament. So how could you give it back? So please explain to me how it was immediately withdrawn.
You cannot give back something you did not have. So it stands
no, it was immediately withdrawn. She was given it.
No, but here's the point. You cannot give something back.
Right.
Could you give me back something that I did not give to you? It means you can only give back what you have in your possession.
And she is the one, she is the one that said, when they wanted to appoint an acting commissioner of police and deputy commissioner of police, wrote to Bliss or Trotsy Prasad, whoever was the chair of the Police Service Commission, and said, I am a creature of statute. I have to operate within the four walls of statute. And there is no power under the Constitution that allows me to appoint a no order. She said she knew then that she was a creature of statute. But when C. Prasad gave her that merit list, she knew, and she could, how being a creature of statute, the only thing that was left for her to do was to prepare the notification. That's all. Let the Parliament sort it out. Let the Parliament sort it out. And so I am afraid. My major point, my overarching point is this. I do understand why the government would want an appointee, even of someone who was political in nature, because not only do they feel that the person will support them, but they have supported them over the years, as well as the fact that the Constitution contemplates it. The Constitution says that when we had the coup, who was active for the president? It was the president of the Senate who acted for the president, Emmanuel Carter. So there's no question that the Constitution contemplates a political appointment. But at the same token, that same Constitution wants the president to have certain independent and indiscretion. It is a tension that is not workable. And the overarching consideration is this: if the president is the head of state, the repository of executive authority, la-di-di-da, her responsibility or his responsibility is not to the government of the day, not to the political party of the day, but to the people of the country. And therein lies the intention. So that the tension will be in making decisions. Can that president, who is so appointed, make decisions which the Republican Constitution and which her office requires of him or her to do that in the interest of the people of the country? Can he or she do that when he or she is being, when he or she is basically doing the bidding of the government of the day, which in many cases may not be in the interest of the people, but in the interest of the party? And therein lies the problem with having a person that they can appoint, that the Constitution allows them to appoint, that we understand why they would want to appoint someone who they don't want to go rogue on them. They don't want anybody going rogue on them, you know. They don't want an Ocasio situation, right? So they want somebody who's not going to play those games with them. But is that in the interest of the people of the country? That is what I say. Is it in the interest? Because she then becomes, I'm sorry to say, nothing against Ms. Kangaloo, but I'm sorry to say that it will be seen or it will appear as though she is just a voice piece of the government and doing their bidding. And is that supposed to be your overarching role? And I'm sorry, she hasn't done anything. She hasn't been elected as yet. I mean, what's his name? Israel can't spend a month without being in the papers. So, you know, they've given him this thing. You know, they aren't going anywhere. Yeah, he can't. He just can't. He has withdrawal symptoms. He has to be in the papers. So he is in the papers again. He knows they aren't going anywhere. I don't dislike Israel. Israel's my friend. I'm telling you, all these people either went to school with them, or went to school with them, or went to school with them. Right? Understand that? I went to school with them. You understand?
So you know them well.
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I went to school with them.
You got that point
Or if I
across.
didn't go to school with them, I taught them.
Karen,
You understand? So
you know how they performed in class. You know who they are long before they became who they are today. You know who they were before who
there
they
you
became.
go.
Yeah. So and you can assess them based on the whole story.
There
How
you
they
go.
were before and how they are
So
now.
shall be in the end. And I like Christine Gangulu. Let me put that on the record. And I want to say something else because, in all fairness, Kerwin Garcia, husband, I have the highest regard for him because when I started my medical negligence lawsuit, Kerwin was valedictorian of his class, and at that time there were not that many law students at law school, and he was one of the few law students that I got close to in terms of, he actually came to my home a few times, because I really have. He's a wonderful human being, in my opinion. He likes to tease me, and every time he sees me, he says, he and Colin Kangaloo say, Miss, he like to play that silly, naughty game with me. But the point is that why I like Kerwin so much, when I had my medical negligence case, Kerwin did the statement of case under the old rules. And when, for whatever reason, not because of him, because of conditions outside of his control, he had to withdraw from being part of my team, he did not charge me a black cent, nor would he take a black cent from me. And he is a brilliant young man. He is an excellent attorney. And so I feel conflicted by even having this discussion because of my personal knowledge of the individuals. But then again, if you are in politics, you have to be able fair or favor. So in this case, it's not fair. It's more the favor. I have to make sure that I don't allow the favor to blind me in looking at the issue.
Understood.
And it is favor, not favor in this case.
Yeah. Understood. Well, I am saying my key thing is what I stated before. The Constitution, clearly, as you have expressed, empowers the government to have a president of their choice, whether a politician or not. The Constitution makes provision for that. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. But when you take a principled position, at least that is what I thought the position was, that you could never do that and will never support that.
Yes.
To be in a position to make the call now, and you're going to do precisely what you say you will never support, that tells me something about you again. Just like when your government can't handle crime, in other words, they should move out. But now you're in the position and you can't make the argument that you're handling crime. You don't even know where to begin to make that argument because the whole country will come down on it. And you're not moving out. You're not moving out. And
not
then
moving out at all.
To reverse something you took a stand on and you took a stand for. You are against
principle
position. And now because you there, you are saying, in other words, here we saying to the country, you see when I'm not in the office, those things, they're wrong. But when I'm in the office, well, they could be right.
But it's gone worse than that, Richard.
Yeah.
In my view, it's a disregard, a blatant disregard for the how it looks, how we're going to look, the optics. We are descended, in my view, into a state where we are no longer a democracy. When you won't allow people to do marches, when the commissioner of police, and I think in one instance, if I have read it correctly, he is supposed to put in writing the reason why he's not giving you permission to have a march. That is our enshrined rights under our Constitution, not only freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, but also we have a peculiar provision, freedom of political expression. And when you have time after time, people being denied the right to have a march, we're denying them that right. When you look at the murder rate, and you just can't regard, when you look at the flooding in this country and how people suffer, you saying why I had to go? Why I had to go? I send my other minister. I'm talking like how he likes to talk, because that's how he talks sometimes. When he doesn't want to speak in a polished manner, he speaks in a orangutango kind of way. Like that's his way of related to the people. So the people say, "Oh God, that's one of we," But I didn't have to go to the flooding. I mean, you are the prime minister of this country. Go down to the flooding. and see the people and the suffering that the people going through. You know,
But when it
because
is
you know why? You
important to
just
him,
do not
people
care.
must get off their bed to run to a poll to vote to make sure he get back the job. But
Yeah, but
when they are
you see,
submerged in water and they need
right.
help and they want representation, you could stay
But you
away
know
and
what he
say,
said?
no,
But he said
yeah,
he didn't have to go.
yeah,
No, what is
yeah.
the painful part? Is if he said like with that guy got into trouble with that Bush in New Orleans, where they were mostly black voters and they're mostly Democrats. So he figured, when I go down there to see these people when they're voting for me, right? People staying in big stadium under the worst conditions in the so-called most developed country in the world. When he took his sweet time to finally go down there to show some sort of empathy for the people and their
It
suffering.
was
When
too
he
late.
finally did that, he apologized for that. But our Prime Minister not apologizing. He's saying, I didn't flood politics. But that was the headline. But I didn't flood politics. In other words, he's showing you, I don't care what you think. I is the boss. I in control. I ain't going to do what I want. You're not marching. I don't care. I'm taking kangaroo straight from the Senate. Yes, I know her father-in-law was the Minister of Education. I know her uncle-in-law is Noel Garcia. But I don't care. I don't care what you think. I in charge. I have over 600 murders. What you want me to do is they don't have good parents. I don't care. I'm showing you. I'm not allowing you to march. And guess what? Local government elections, you're not having local government elections for your plan. No, I'm going to lose it. Not lose it, but I'm going to lose the election. And what you could do, what he's showing you is, I don't care what you think. I am the boss. That is the disrespect for the people of this country. And it is descending, and no offense to Christine Aglu, who I keep saying, I personally like her. And it pains me to even speak on it, but I have to be independent in my thinking. And for them to take Christine, with all due respect to Christine, who is the president of the Senate, and move her straight across, because she's going to be elected based on how the Electoral College operates and all of that. It's just not what you want from a prime minister. That is going against all democratic principles. But you know what? He doesn't care.
Should she withdraw?
Huh?
Should she withdraw herself?
I don't think she will withdraw herself. She should, but she wouldn't. She wouldn't. It'll be too much embarrassment for the government. It'll look as though she's siding with it. And, a lot of people who made their decisions about being part of this government had to make decisions that, speaking for myself, there's no way I could have been in this government. But some people could convince themselves that they could. Some people could convince themselves, well, I'll go in there. And, if I went in there, well, why should we stay out? Let's go in there, maybe make a difference. That's not true. That's human nature. So she's not going to withdraw. Her father-in-law, Anthony Garcia. And like what I said about his son Kerwin, and I sang his praises, I had the unfortunate experience of him being forced on me as my campaign manager. And one of the worst experiences one could have. So if my experience with him is any indication, one of the worst experiences I had, yes, I could say it personally and I've seen it openly. A way I can praise his son, I cannot do that with his father, Anthony Garcia, who was forced on me as a campaign manager. Forced on me at the time. But the point I'm making is that this is an indication of a government that probably believes, I don't know, they think they'll win again. I think maybe they think that once Kamala stays there, UNC won't win.
They can't be looking at any other thing to believe they could be re-elected. That's the only thing. And I could tell you, if tomorrow she decides to step down, you would see other people stepping down on our side. Once a new head shows up over there.
It's true.
Yeah, once a new head shows up on that side, this side will realize I don't have a chance. I gone before I go out there and be humiliated. But because she's there, he's thinking I could beat her. Notice he continues. This is why I'll pull up the press conference later. I'm sure he going back to the same tune. But you know what? With all that he has done, and he threw in her direction, in the last general election, is a banana kind of nonsense that pulled him out the hole because he was going down bad. And so he was going down bad, terrible. After that, so it came down to a race thing, propelled from him on his side. And then we learned later, Barrington Skippy Thomas told us that here, the person who went in the party and came up with that ad got the CEO position. I think
what ad was that?
That person did the ad, something with a banana, right?
Oh, I never watched this. I never
he said, in other words, that person was planted on the other side to go and do that to them, so that he was able to come out and talk about the commercials, and that brought back, because of the racial line, pulled all the Africans who had walked away from him. He pulled them back in line. At that stage, they forgot how they were treated over the 5 years, how they were left to suffer, how the family business went down, and this and that. It didn't happen this time. And one of the things I've told you all, for example, you heard the thing about name, right? The name and where you get a name from. Up to this day, the Prime Minister has not uttered a word verbally on it. But he put up how he got his name.
About what?
About the same name thing, you know, when the opposition leader said that asked Camille how she got her name. And
I didn't know. I didn't follow that. I don't follow some of the nonsense.
Well, just telling you.
Yeah, but sorry, I mean no disrespect.
How offensive that was, because white. I think the opposition leader said Camille got her name from white people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, remember that.
The point is, to this day, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has said nothing on it, except he put up on his webpage how he got his name. Now, when election comes, you want to bet you're going to hear him talking about it then? I want to say to
that's politics, huh? I'm not going to be against for that.
If something like that was important to you, you would have raised it at the time it came up to rebut it. But to save it, to try to play talking about it when election comes, it informs me that you knew all along it was not important to you, but you're only using it because it's important to you now, and you want to chain people up with race talk to come and support it. And I want to dismiss it from in advance. And you had to study people politics. Eventually,
what I would say is
establish a style of how they behave politically. So what you see happening there is that he's waiting, and then he will take the platform to come and say, you all remember that? Well, let me remind you all about what was said. And from then to now, I couldn't say a thing about it. But now I feel I should. I didn't want to, you know. But now I feel compelled to do so.
Well,
let me tell you what was really saying. And at that time, pretend he analyzing a statement that he could have analyzed a long time and dismissed if he wanted. But rubbish if he wanted to. But saving it for elections should inform parents.
Richard, two things. Politics has the morality zone, so I'm not going to be against him if that's his style. That's what he does. Fool me once, shame on. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you.
And that's number the part I'm dealing with. And there are people who can be fooled twice,
3 times.
And I don't want that to happen to them.
But it will be. And
I want to reduce the number, Karen. I want the number to be significantly less.
One thing I want to say before we depart our ways.
I believe all the remainder of the time, Karen.
I don't have much. Have a minute. I just wanted to tell you. Thank you. You're so kind. 60 seconds. I just wanted to tell you that if Kamala does step down and they get the right person like a Kevin Noray, I think he'd be a good person, actually. I personally like him a lot, actually. I believe that there will be an exodus from the PNM, but not because a lot of them who are very unhappy, do not like what is going on, sitting down there quiet, but afraid to talk because they don't want to lose their work. If they lose their work, you know, when you're out, you know. They're not only not working, they make it so you don't get a job, you know. You ain't working no way.
No contract,
they're making sure you suffer, you know. So you come like a little, you come a cup of begging and get me a little thing. And they know that because they have seen examples of that. And we have seen examples of that. And they know that. So there are a lot of them who I am sure are not happy with what's going on. But they're sitting on there quietly in a corner because they don't want their head chopped off. and to become a backbencher. If they're MPs, they'll become backbenchers. And if they're senators, they will be removed. There we go. And he will do it. So there we go. Anyway, I think we reached 6 o'clock, and I think I am going to see a sign that says leave. Yes,
well, I
they put it up.
But
David,
Karen, I look forward to seeing you next week already.
Hi, David.
Hi, Karen.
We done yet, and I start missing you already.
Oh,
but I will
okay,
hold on.
Fool me up.
No, I'll put on the clock again, Karen, and
start
to
yes.
Then
yes, bye-bye, David.
I didn't respond to you until I look forward to Karen. I was so happy to see you today.
I too. Look how I talk. Look how we talk.
Indeed.
2023. Don't forget this, huh?
I'll miss you until next week.
Okay.
Take it easy.
Take care.
All right. Daddy
Bye-bye.
Mac, get home safely. I'll hold on to hear the news before I cut away.
Okay then.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye, Daddy Mac.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Karen.
Bye-bye, Ruben.
The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital. Power 102 Digital. Streaming 24/7 on power102fm.com and on the Power 102 Digital app. Power 102 Digital. This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
With your news to 6 p.m. here on Power 102, powered by Izzo.com, I'm Sparkle McIntosh. Good evening. The Regulated Industries Commission will begin its public consultation for the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission price review from tomorrow with a live media interview at 10:15 a.m. On Thursday, the focus will shift to a live television interview at 6:15 a.m. At 9 a.m. on Thursday, there will be a consultation with the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Retired Persons. On Tuesday, January 17th, a regional public consultation will be held at the Center of Excellence Macoya from 5 to 7 p.m. Tomorrow, the draw for playing positions for the Small Conventional Bands Finals will be held at the VIP Lounge of the Queen's Park Savannah from 10 a.m. 16 small conventional bands that have qualified for the final round of Panorama 2023, which will be held on Saturday, January 14th at the Queen's Park Savannah, will commence at 7 p.m. Meanwhile, defending champions Uptown Fascinators topped the semi-finals with 277 points. The Tobago band performed Colin Lucas's Dollar Wine. In second place was Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force with 275 points with their selection Raising Dust. TNTech New East Side Dimension playing I Love Being Me had to settle for third place with 274 points. The Movement for Social Justice is condemning the attack on institutions of Brazilian democracy, the parliament and presidential buildings among them, that took place on Sunday. MSJ, in a media release, said it also stands in total solidarity with the constitutionally elected and installed president of Brazil, Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, his political party, the Workers' Party of Brazil, and the progressive social movements of Brazil, and the vast majority of Brazilian people who are defending democracy at this